Hey guys, welcome back to Backseat Driver Show. I'm Julian, and together with me we have Idris and James, and we are going to talk about depreciation and resale value. Now, for the past couple of months, we've been receiving a lot of comments and questions about depreciations and resale value of your car. So we decided, you know what, this is what we're going to do today. Idris, what do you have for us?
Well, I will describe what is resale value first, a brief introduction of what that is. Um, but before we get to that, also, I think there's something that people should know, and that is paper value. Now, paper value is a term that's widely used to describe the car's path, if applicable, and COE rebates put together. And that is the baseline of any used car on the market today. It is a guaranteed value from LTA, of course, when you deregister the car. So the dealer will actually use it as a baseline to quote you for your car. You can find this figure yourself. You don't have to go to a dealer and get them find this figure for you. And while paper value is guaranteed, the dealer will offer some money on top of that, and some people call that body value. Now, that is where resale value is determined, because high resale value would mean that you would have more body value, and if you have poor resale value, then probably you're only going to get very close to your path and COE rebates. So that's a brief introduction of resale value. It's a very loosely used word. But there's something more concrete, which is depreciation, which, Julian, I think you have a idea of how that works.
Yeah, I think depreciation is actually very important to consider before buying a car in Singapore. It's not all that confusing when you calculate the depre. If you buy a path car, a path car meaning it's a car that's within the first 10 years of its lifespan, it's important to take the cost of the car. You've got to actually minus off your path value and then divide it by 10 years to find out exactly what's your annual depreciation. So it's quite straightforward. However, if you're driving a COE car, which means it's a car that's more than 10 years old, all you have to do is just take the cost of the car divided by the full 10 years. Why? Because once you renew your COE, or if you buy a COE car, you no longer qualify for the path rebates anymore. You don't get back the path value of the car. And path is usually about 50% of the OMV of your car. However, if it's a path car, like I said, which is the first 10 years of the lifespan of the car, you will actually get back some money when your COE ends. Hence, you'll need to minus off that amount before dividing it by the full 10 years.
Very
Yes.
dry, huh? Everyone,
Very dry.
very,
Very dry,
very
very
dry.
It's
What
a
do you
very
think,
dry.
James?
It's a very dry topic.
Okay, so I mean,
But it's important. It's important. It's dry, but it's important to know all this. I mean, if you find out, if you go to sgCarMart.com and you go over to used car tab and you find, like, for example, oh, you know what, I'm gonna look for a Mercedes-Benz E-Class, and just for the sake of calculation, I mean, if the car is left with several months and you're gonna pay like 30 over thousand for it, the depreciation is going to be quite high. So 30,000, while affordable, might not be all worth it because of the depre that you are going to have to pay. So that's something to consider. James?
right. So okay, I've been looking at cars on sgCarMart, right? And I've been trying to figure out like a trend when it comes to depreciation. Um, I've looked at cars that have depreciation. I have 10k depreciation per year, like under 10k. So the cars that we have are the Honda Civic with 8,100 per year, the Toyota Altis with $8,300 per year, and interestingly, we have the Skoda Octavia with $8,200 per year. Now, I would think generally you see your Asian cars in this under 10k per year depre category. So it's quite the surprise to see a Conti car with a Cat B COE nonetheless that has a lower depre than the Altis.
Right. Okay. So I mean, it's about $100 difference, right? From
Per
what you
year,
saw.
per year, yeah.
Well, although Cat A and Cat B, whether the COE is or rather the COE is not really involved when it comes to depreciation, although there is a calculation in terms of COE rebates. But now if you look at COEs, they cost pretty much the same. And well, I would think that these three cars that you mentioned are very comparable. They are very good family cars. So I think it might not be a very good example as to why the the Japanese cars have more resale. But talking about resale value, a lot of people do say that resale value for Japanese cars is more than continental cars and European cars. Now, this is a trend that I can agree with. Usually, you do see Asian makes seem to hold resale values much higher than their European counterparts. But to actually point out that as a reason is I don't really agree with that, because there's a lot of reasons as to why resale values change between cars, and they also will change over time depending on the perceived quality, for example, of the car, any issues that come up with the car over the years ever since new. And now we're seeing a new trend where if they're used for private hire, then it seems to affect the depreciation also. So things will always change. The market is always moving. So you can't really point out the reasons as to why resale value is low because of where the car is manufactured. That's just me. What do you think, Julian?
Well, I think the Skoda Octavia has a lower depreciation of $100 compared to the Altis. I think there's several reasons for it. I mean,
Yep.
I'm not really mathematically sound, but I think this sort of makes sense. Skoda Octavia is in a Cat B. Currently, Cat B is about $1,000 lesser than Cat A, where Altis is actually. So basically, you're paying a higher COE for the Altis, despite it being Cat A. Secondly, your Altis basic cost is actually higher than the Octavia. And that's also because it actually has a higher OMV than the Octavia as well. So that's why your depre is just slightly higher than the Skoda. So it's all, I would think it's quite straightforward. Correct me if I'm wrong, Idris, the OMV also highly depends on the spec of the car.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
I mean,
so I'm not saying that the Altis is better spec than the base Altis is better spec than the base Octavia, but it's got a higher OMV, and the basic cost is higher than the Octavia as well.
yeah, it really depends. Sometimes, the exchange rates in other countries sort of affect this OMV also. So that and a lot of manufacturers are trying to keep it below 20,000 because then they won't be taxed. They won't get the huge ARF
Yeah,
tax on
the
it.
tiered ARF, at least in Singapore, lah. At least in Singapore. Which is also why the Altis is actually more expensive than the Octavia. The Octavia is some 92,000. The base Altis is almost 93,000.
Yep.
So that could be the reason why.
Okay, cool. So, okay, say I'm deciding to buy a new car, right? And then I'm looking at sgCarMart, and I'm looking at all the like the price list. I'm looking at the breakdown of the prices, and then I see depreciation. Like, what is it that me as a buyer I
I
should
think
understand?
don't always just look at the cost, the number when it comes to depreciation. Like, don't see like, oh, the car is $10,000. It's a bad deal. I should be getting something which is $7,000. It really depends on the car. So sometimes, a $10,000 depreciation for that car might be a very good deal.
Like
Especially,
for one example.
let's say that car has two different specifications. Let's say you have an example right now, perhaps at the top of my head is the Passat 1.8 versus the Passat 2 liter. We're talking about the current generation one. If
Right,
you look
okay.
at depreciation costs, the 1.8 is about $10,000 to $11,000,
Okay.
if I'm not wrong. But the 2 liter, you can get it for about $11,000. So the 2 liter is a much better car. It's more powerful. It has a better gearbox. These things do matter. And if you're just gonna narrow your search down to 10K depreciation for the 1.8s, then you're probably gonna miss out on a very good deal. So, and that's that, I think. The idea is buy a good deal. Don't just look at depreciation. That's my thoughts.
What do you think, Julian?
Well, I think depreciation is key when buying a car. I would think slightly differently. I would think don't look at the cost of the car, but rather look at the depreciation of the car. But I think Idris made a very good point, which is I, to me, it depends on how deep your pocket is, really. I mean, how much can you tolerate? Can you tolerate a $10,000 a year depre? Can you tolerate a $12,000 depre? Can you tolerate a $15,000 depre? It's really up to individual. You got to know exactly how much you're willing to spend a year or even a month. I mean, even when your car is parked, like for the past 2 months, we didn't really drive much. You're actually still paying for the car for sure, right? That's how depreciation is being calculated. That's how we actually count. Uh, so it's sort of difficult, I think, to me to have to pay $15,000 depreciation for a car. It's quite pricey. But then again, it depends on what car you're talking about. I mean, if you're talking about a performance car, I mean, what if you're talking about a C63? I don't think you're going to get a $10,000 Depre. If you're talking about
Yeah,
RS4 Avant, I don't think you're going to get a $8,000 Depre. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely gonna be pricey.
Yeah, I think those
So
cars are
yeah.
$20,000 to $30,000 depre a year. But then again, if you find one for $20,000 worth of depre, or even $25,000 versus $30,000 to $35,000, I think the 20,000 one would probably be a better deal, or 25,000 one. So yeah, that's that. So it does affect also these crazy cars that we all lust over.
Yeah, but it also depends on the number of years left on the car. If you're buying a used car, that is, right? I mean, it depends
Yeah.
on how many more years you've got left on the car. So I think it's important to do your math and divide the amount over the remaining years to see how much you have to pay annually, and then maybe divide by another 12 more months to see how much you're going to pay monthly, or how much you're going to lose monthly on your car. I mean, we all know cars, there's nothing to hide. Car in Singapore or maybe anywhere else is a liability. It's important that you do your calculations correctly. But if you hop onto sgCarMart.com, I think there's nothing to worry about because all the information is provided for. I mean, you have the depreciation, you have the engine capacity, the price range, registration date, mileage, you've got the vehicle types. So there is really, it's just quite clear cut. So, and the calculations are quite accurate as well. So there you have it, man.
All right, guys, so I have a question for you. Does depreciation affect resale value of your car? Idris?
Right, this is the interesting question, and a lot of people think that is true. I don't really disagree, but resale value in Singapore, like I mentioned earlier, it really is how much the dealers are willing to pay on top of your PAF plus COE rebates, if applicable, and that's also called paper value. So in Singapore, it's a very strange thing where depreciation is sort of pegged to government incentives. In other countries you don't have that. So does depreciation affect resale value? Well, I guess it does. If you look at cars on the market which have very low depreciation, you'd be surprised to see them sit on the market for many months because well, there's probably a reason why it has very low depreciation. Some people just don't want these cars, and yeah, this I'm just saying it as a buyer, lah, really, for your question, because it is a very interesting question, especially in Singapore, because we are so different when we buy and sell cars here. What do you think, Julian?
Well, I think the link isn't direct. The depreciation of a car doesn't really dictate the resale value, because in Singapore, at least, the resale value is what dealers want to take in on top of, or what you want to sell on top of your paper value. So it depends on the demand of your car. I mean, I'm sure the depre for an E-Class would be a lot higher than the depre for a Toyota Camry, or maybe a Honda Accord, not the Toyota Camry, a Honda Accord. Same size, different class, of course, but I mean, the resale value for an E-Class would definitely be better despite having a higher resale value. It's a Mercedes-Benz, it's in demand. I mean, you don't see a lot of Accords on the road for a reason, but you see a lot of E-Classes on the road. I mean, hell, even taxis are E-Class. So the higher depre for E-Class doesn't mean that it has bad resale value. You know, people will still want to buy an E-Class, and hence the resale value for the E-Class is still very strong.
Okay, but you guys been talking in the like with respect to just dealers, right? But if you wanted to sell the car by yourself, for example, like understanding your annual depreciation would help you make a more educated price, right, for your car. Give a more educated price for your car, right?
Yes, yes, it definitely will. I remember there was once one of my friends decided to sell his car on his own, and he didn't really look at the prices online on for his car. I think within 10 minutes, I think 5 people called him and say, I will down 10K on top of your price. Like, it was shouting over there, bro, you got a buyer. Ah? No worries, bro. I will top up on top of him, because his price was just so low at that time. So understanding depreciation does help. It's very easy to see. Just go and search your car on sgCarMart's used car pages. Click one of the cars posted, and I think there's a price graph at the bottom. That's how you can also understand your depreciation values, and also go and find out your PAF and COE rebates yourself. I think it's very easy. All you need to do is put in 4 digits of your IC and your license plate number, and you can get it from the LTA.
Well, theoretically, it's 3 digits and 1 alphabet lah. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Theoretically, it's 3 digits and 1 alphabet. But yes, all these you can find out from LTA. You can find out yourself. I mean, go Google it. Better still, head on to sgCarMart.com, used car tabs or new car tab to see exactly where you stand. If you want to sell your car your own, try and have a feel of what the market sentiment is. Find out exactly how much your car is going for. Don't just click on one. Don't just see one example and think that that's the price you should be selling your car at. I think you should really go do a little bit of research. That's really on you if you want to sell a car.
Yes.
Well, I do have an advice though that I always tell people, that my friends and all that kinds of stuff, is if you decide to buy a new car, more so a new car, try to drive the car for the full 10 years. Get a car that you like and drive for full 10 years, because that way your depreciation is linear. You don't have to worry that much about the resale value, because you're just going to get back the scrap value anyway, or rather the paper value of the car. So driving your car for full 10 years, it's always the best option.
Yes, it is. You can look at depreciation values. They fall the moment you drive out of the showroom, actually.
Yeah.
So I can agree to that. Drive your
Yeah.
car. Drive your cars longer. Buy the cars that you enjoy and drive it longer.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, man. Yeah, right. So, guys, there you have it. This is our opinion on depreciation and resale value. Tell us what you think in the comment box below. Let us know what you think about your car's depreciation and the importance of resale value. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let us know if you have any burning questions or any future topics you'd like us to cover as well. In the meantime, Stay safe and be well. Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.